Signals on 91.3 Lagos Talks. This morning we'll go straight to this morning took a different on what's supposed to talk about the security challenges, but we'll postpone that till next week. There's someone that I've been meaning to interview for a long time, and I finally got hold of. So his interest in life is about exploring of possibilities at the intersection of creativity, business, and human progress. He's fascinated by ideas, culture, books, entrepreneurship, technology, society, humor, humanity, beauty, art, and future. It's plenty. He's done copywriting, concept development, and creative strategy for notable brands. He's traveled to different beautiful places. And in his spare time, he likes reading and sharing original ideas. His interest in global tolerance led him to create a movement in cultural diplomacy. And when he's not enjoying jokes and when he's not enjoying jokes and he's busy fiddling with his phone and plotting a prank or daydreaming about owning a dog, and then I had someone call him who sells a dog. His last employment was as a creative director at a full-service advertising agency in Lagos, Nigeria, and is also a writer. So he's a creative entrepreneur, writer, and culture enthusiast. I have with me Chris Ogunlowo. Welcome to Signals. Hope you can hear me. Hello?
Yes, I can. Yeah, thank you. It's nice to be here with you.
Yes, please. So we're talking, we took a different turn this morning, and when the election era, right, everybody is trying to do something for their political parties. People are trying to do different things for their is either is Peter Obi or is Atiku or is Ashiwaju. And how can creatives, and that's my first question to you this morning, how can creatives make use of this election period so that they don't look like a sellout to other parties?
Okay, so I didn't expect a political question.
It's all right.
Well, yeah. So, but I guess there are different ways to look at it. Creatives as service providers can, of course, help, take part in this democratic tradition. Either they help campaign, process in terms of helping the candidates or politicians, as it were, put their messages together and try and help them to connect to their audience in different ways. So if it's a creative that is into using words to do that, then they would look for things like, slogans or using the right kind of words, put them together either through radio or TV commercials. So creative can come and play, their role in that regard. And also in terms of helping, I suppose, candidate in itself to tailor their message in a very articulate way, whether in terms of visuals or trying to evoke a certain kind of responses from people. I think it's a good time for creatives in every sense. Of course, they play the behind the scene roles, so you don't get to see them every time, but you see them, you see their work, their services in form of visuals, in forms of music, in form of all of this whole creative component that goes into election campaign. Yes.
Okay. They say culture is strategy for breakfast. Do you agree?
It's not a yes or no answer. I think it's it depends on the context, really. I'd rather say there should be a balance between that. I don't think culture, consumes everything at once. There has to be some degree of strategy in everything so that it doesn't become one-sided. Yes. So it's not a yes or no answer, but depending on the context, I can then lean into whether it's a yes of a 90-degree or a no of a 20-degree. Yes.
Okay. While reading your profile, I saw cultural diplomacy, and that's why I asked the culture is strategy for breakfast. What's cultural diplomacy? It's new for me. So
well, I don't think I'm going to I should take any kind of credit for that, for the word or something. But what I know was I would say cultural diplomacy is really a way to use culture to bridge gaps between people and cultures generally. I came to this because of an experience I had when I was somewhere in Asia, and I found that without the typical way of having political discourse, countries meeting, you have ambassadors and all of those things. There is a way we can deepen culture in a way that allows us to understand people who are different from us, and then ultimately we can move, ourselves or humanity forward in general. So it's my vague, definition of what culture diplomacy really is, just a way to use culture as a vehicle to bridge gaps and allow understanding at individual and even at general level.
Okay. The creative space has quite some time, some challenges, and some of them be limited to trends and being also very careful about topics. How do you manage this? The creative space is large, right? And sometimes we're neither here nor there. How do we balance as creatives? And creatives can be very broad.
Yeah, so it's very broad. So, but maybe if you're speaking in commercial sense, so creatives being people who not necessarily in the cultural sense, like people who create for TV, who create film and make music and all of those, or perhaps in general sense. Well, the creative environment has always been a little bit it's a kind of tedious place because you have people who are creating from nothing. And if you're creating from nothing, there's a degree of subjectivity to what you're creating or to who is consuming what you're creating. And again, in a world where people have got to be careful in terms of what you put out there, you don't want to hurt some sensibilities, whether cultural sensibility or religious sensibilities or political sensibilities. So a creative, it then suggests that a creative have a degree of responsibility in what they do, no matter how far you want to go in terms of your message or your creation. You want to also be mindful of some of the context in which you are expressing yourself. So if we are looking at say for instance, Nigeria as it is right now, where it's a political season, and on the back of that we always have our religious dramas somewhere. So if a creative is going to take advantage of that to pass a message, whether it's a commercial message, whether it's a non-commercial message, you also want to make sure that you are respectful of some of these things, but doesn't necessarily mean that you're respectful by compromising on your creative work. It's just that you are respectful to the degree which, in trying to pass your message across, you don't want to seem intolerant or insensitive. Yes.
Okay. What fascinates you about the creativity in Nigeria? Because you talked about we having to create from nothing, right? What fascinates you about our creativity? And I'm asking this, and the Ikorodu boys come to mind for me. We're creating from nothing, and they were trying to we create. So take for example the Ikorodu boys. For some reason, they watch movies, they create their own space, and it's almost like a replica of the movie.
Absolutely. I mean, those guys are quite fascinating, to be honest. And in terms of how to create from nothing, I mean, it's just a way of saying, who knew that you could find, shall I say, joy, or from people who just recreate existing, forms or stories, which is what those young guys do. So they just basically surprise us by recreating some of these things. So it's really a way of saying, how come nobody did that before now? Perhaps somebody has been doing that in other places, or somebody has been doing it in Nigeria and we never knew. But the way these guys have been doing it at a scale in which they've been able to do it is, without words, very, very impressive. So yeah, it's a very good example of having to create from nothing and creating something of beauty and relevant. And they delight us. We don't pay them for this. They just create content. And then and then everybody's sharing, and then they have global rep and that. So, but in general terms, the Nigerian creative space, again, we are talking broadly. It's an exciting space. On the one hand, in terms of music, we see what the big boys are doing in the music industry. We see what's happening with Afrobeats. These guys have literally taken over everywhere, and we have on the content creator side, massive storytelling happening there. People, I personally somehow, for whatever reason, I don't know, I just tend to really follow food content creators on Instagram. I just like to see those beautiful meals that I cannot eat, but I just see them, and then but it's fascinating how they grow followership with these things, running into thousands and thousands, and the way they put it together in very compelling, very beautiful, very good to the eye way that just make you want to just so it's part of the whole landscape of what we are doing as creatives, in every sense. And then of course the movie industry as well, which has always been the poster child for our ability to tell compelling stories and everything. So yeah, in general, the ecosystem is vibrant, it's fun, it's part of what we enjoy as being Nigerian, regardless of whatever reality we have on ground. Yeah.
Okay, so your last employment, you're a creative director at a full service advertising agency. Share with us some of the share with us some of the stories that your team comes up with and you have to run with. Anyone challenging?
What do you mean challenging?
Any challenging job that
Oh,
that comes to mind for you, that you had to execute?
well, we're gonna have to go through all of them. It's gonna require a whole day.
Pick one. Pick one.
Yeah, I'm really trying to scan one that I think might be interesting. Okay, yeah, I know there's a particular one where, so if you don't mind, I wouldn't have to mention the brand's name.
No, not at all.
Right. So there's a telecommunication brand that I worked, on, and this was during the World Cup, the last World Cup, and we were meant to come up with a TV campaign to position the brand as a big supporter of African football. I mean, I'm sure even in mentioning it, you might be able to have an idea of the brand. And what then happened was, so I was leading a team of creatives, and we were meant to come up with, with different TV commercials that the client will eventually approve, and then we can go into production, and then it will be published eventually. Well, what I didn't see coming, even though I know it's part of being, it's part of the game as being a creative director, the back and forth, the rejection and approval and corrections and tweaks and stuff, this was on a very high level. So I said to people that I cannot estimate the amount of scripts we had to, propose to the client, but I wouldn't be too far off if I said we wrote more than 80.
80.
And that is just me trying to be a little bit conservative, because we were going back and forth, I mean, it's just part of the game in advertising. Go back and forth. We want this, we like this, we don't like this. And what I realized was that my team was completely tired. So, and as being the team lead, you don't want to also seem like you're not giving them, you're not inspiring them. It's not your own excuse to claim that you're tired and then you give up. So at some point I had to, these are people who are working long hours, late night. So, and I remember that at some point I told them, okay, guys, you have to hold up on this. Let me just be in charge of this myself. So I started doing the scripting and back and forth, just updating the team anyway. And we went to present. Eventually, the client, if it was the kind of script that I didn't expect the client to approve, but I just took the risk to include it on. And to my surprise, it was the preferred script, and it wasn't even the type that there were going to be corrections on it. It was just the moment I presented it to the client, I mean to the team on the client side, they just okayed it right away. Went to present to the people who were going to have the final approval. And next thing we're shooting, outside of the country, and then it became a really interesting commercial. And yeah, so that was partly challenging. I mean, it was very challenging, but I think the fact that I suppose my team had a last laugh was a good experience.
Now, having shared this with us, what do you think is the problem with clients? Not problem really, with clients, that they can't get to accept new ideas. It has to be something they are familiar and comfortable with. Like that challenge with creatives and clients, they design something for them and they're like, no, we don't want this. I want what exactly? And for most clients, sometimes they really can't explain that this is what they want, but they know what they want. So how do you, and are you speaking to a lot more people who would also find themselves in this gap where clients are saying they don't want this, but you're like, so what exactly do you want? And then they cannot communicate what they want, but they know what they want.
Mm. Well, I mean, that's just the reality of the creative life. It's the situation. There's really nothing. But what I say to people is, it's better not to try to see whether you can correct clients or you can change them. It's part of the game. What you want to do is train yourself to know how to be on the client side in terms of like mentally being in their, literally be in their shoes, to really see things from their eyes, so that when you are in that position, you would have an understanding of how subjective they are. So for creative people, there is always that clash between, the brilliance that you think you have, like even if it's just as something as simple as designing a logo for a client. Oh, I sell this product and I need a design, a logo, whatever. So the creative tends to respond to that from a place of, oh, I am this brilliant, intelligent person that can create that to you, and then what then happens is the reality then comes where you are dealing with someone who might not even understand the level of your intelligence, of your brilliance, who just feels that I'm trying to use your service to create what I have in mind. So there's that tension between the subjective way that the client is looking at things and your own objective way of looking at your brilliance. So what I feel is there has to be the creative on the one hand has to be a trained, a highly emotionally intelligent person who has to sometimes hold on your brilliance and be in the shoes of your client, look at things from their point of view. And if you have an understanding from there, you can engage them at that level. And you can, of course, also draw out some, have your plan of action in terms of, this is what I'm going to do. If it's going to be a logo that I'm going to design for you, I would these are the boundaries in which we are going to work. You tell me your color choice or your what kind of thing. Even if you have any logo out there, any that anyone has done elsewhere that you've seen as reference, could you share it so it gives you an understanding? So these are like part of the journey that I think if a creative put that in place, it doesn't necessarily mean that it guarantees that there won't be tension between the creative and the client. It just means that it can be reduced drastically because you are literally seeing yourself as a partner and you're going through that journey. Now, it's a difficult thing for most creative because temperamentally, creative don't want to feel like they are subjected to some kind of someone, giving them orders or, rule, do this, don't do that, or rejection. I want it, I don't like that. It's a difficult thing, which is why I do advocate that creative go into learn to be business minded on the one hand, really literally just being like a client once in a while, and also learn to be, diplomatic in their engagement. And for clients, what I would say is that my experience has shown me that you're really good. You're really as good as you are lucky if you have like a client that reasons with you, at a level. I've got great clients who, they push you in a way that speaks to my service as a creative, like at a very high level. If you think you're coming with level on a scale of 1 to 10, if you propose something that you think is your level 5, you could have a client that will actually push you and say, oh, I want more. And for me, that's music to my ears. It's something that just makes me want to do more. But if you have a client who, even if you come at level 5 of whatever you're proposing, they are beating it down, making it so you end up having like a level 2 idea. You go out and what is being published is something that you're not proud of. Those are the fears that creatives have. Creatives really do want clients that will push them further, like really do great stuff. But to have a client who has that ability, who understands how to elevate, in quotes, elevate creative work, it's such a blessing, and I do have that kind of experience. So in general, I would say that the client creative dynamic is a difficult one, but I would say it's important for both sides to be on, on the shoe of the other side, so that there can be a drastic reduction in that tension, and ultimately both parties can have a great work that is being published.
Okay, then the signals on 91.3 Lagos Talks. We're talking creatives with Chris Ogunlowo. WhatsApp us or call us 0809 234 5913, 0151519113, or 0151509113. Is there a cost to creatives? As they say, okay, so after I've designed, after I've done the best work, how much do I charge? That's another question for a lot of creatives. How much should they charge for their work?
Well, I suppose your question relates to what is the value of creative work?
Yes, please.
Right. Um, I mean, on the one hand, it's kind of subjective, because what you're selling is not like tangible. You're not selling bread, something that you see, something that is physical. Most of them is usually something that absolutely, they're intangible. So a whole lot of factors can come into that. It depends on the one hand, it would depend on the market, the kind of market you are going into, or you are selling to, or if you have designed some kind of product. So I'll give an example. Let's say the example you gave, the Korodu boys, for instance. If the Korodu boys decides to say we want to sell, our creativity, the question would be, how do they value that? So if they create content for you, what is their rate card? How do they determine their rate card? Some of it would be a bit of just trying to start with any figure and see what people will say about it, and say, oh, this is too expensive because you have these millions or how many thousand followers on Instagram, and you've created this content for me and you're charging me this much. It's a lot. I could have been spending half of this on radio or TV. So there's a bit of juggling that has to happen before the creative people have to then say, okay, it seems to us that after trial and error and stuff, this is the price we should be using. So it's not easy to quickly come to a price, but because whoever designed anything for you today, the price you're giving this social media content creator will be different from what the other person is charging. And of course, there's also the reputation that the creative has, which can also come into and say, I'm going to charge a premium price, not because you can't get this same value from the next guy, but my reputation, the kind of image or that I will now bring to your service, because of the fact that people would say it is done by this notable person, that should also command a price. So it's a whole lot of those things that can come into determining how creative people can put a price on their product.
Okay, so Chris, let's do something. You are the client, right? And then you meet a creative, and you're looking, what would be the metric for you to pay someone for a job?
Well, I know we're talking in broad terms. That has to, if it's very clear, like if I'm a client, it depends on what I'm looking for, and it depends on who I'm talking to. So a whole lot of that comes into that. It's not very easy. Just like I said, I keep repeating the fact that in the creative business, it's really a juggle around subjective, matters. But yeah, it's not that easy. But just like I said, your reputation can come into it. If I'm a client, if I'm going to engage, let me look, for lack of a better example, if I need, let's say we use a small business provider like maybe like event manager.
Let's look at somebody who is selling shoes, and you want to create and you want something for them. You want them to create an experience for you, right? And you want somebody to come and say, okay, influence people to get more people to buy my shoes.
Oh, okay, I'm talking with creative to help me. So I'm the shoemaker, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, and I need a creative to help me create awareness for my product.
Yes, please.
Oh yeah. So number one will be to see that the person has the kind of audience that I want. So if I'm selling shoes, let's say I'm selling shoes to females, and of a certain type of age range, say for instance, young people, very Gen Z kind of people, and I want to talk to them. So the creative I'm going to engage has to be someone that I'm sure can connect with that audience. So before we go into pricing, I want to be sure, I will have to do some due diligence to be sure that I'm talking to the right person. So what kind of audience does this person attract? That audience, does it have that audience in terms whether it's social media eyeballs? And if that is clear, then I can then engage the person and say, I want to sell shoes to this audience and I want to use your platform or help me create content to connect with these people. Then I also need to be sure of the person's reputation. So the fact that you have followership doesn't necessarily mean you might command the kind of value that I want. So I want to be clear on that as well. And ultimately, I want to be sure that the price you call for is the one I can afford. So those are the things I will be thinking about as a client and say, okay, does this person have the attention of the audience I'm trying to talk to? Does this person have reputation? What is the quality of the content that this person creates that I feel can add value or can speak to what I'm trying to achieve? So all of this whole thing will come into my motivation for engaging the person.
Okay. A major challenge for business owners is conversion. After I've paid for the creatives, I'm expecting that conversion rate should be high.
Mhm.
That's another ball game entirely. I've paid this person, I'm expecting that, okay, fine. They have influenced my product, but I'm still expecting conversion and I've not seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell us about that and what should clients expect?
Well, I think clients should be reasonable in their expectation.
Nigerian clients.
I mean, it's a hard thing because I mean, especially because we are living in this digital era where people just assume that. I mean, it's like for every for every business person, there are so many moving parts to your business. There's a huge value chain to your business. So there is no guarantee that you can say that there's no guarantee that by just creating advertising or create content will solve your business problem. It's just one aspect of a huge ecosystem of things. So the conversion thing, and I suppose you're speaking digitally, what I found is that it can be a little bit dodgy, because if I create a content for you and I use my metric to tell you that I created this content and you wanted to target maybe 100,000 eyeballs or clicks, you wanted to get 100,000 clicks, and I actually guarantee you that 100,000 people click this piece of communication that I created for you. And then you're saying, okay, 100,000, and I'm looking at my bottom line. It doesn't seem to be affecting my bottom line, right? In which case, it depends. You can't necessarily put that burden on the content creator, because the content creator's job, on the one hand, is to help you either create awareness, is to stimulate interest in your product. It is not to enter people's pocket and take their money from there. It's just to create, it's some kind of it's just really to create some interest in your product. Oh, this person is selling shoes. Look at this great shoe. And I have create awareness. Oh, this has happened. If you buy this shoe, or you can buy it and get this kind of thing. What if the content creator might need to know that you are running a discount campaign, which if you include that in the piece of communication, might also guarantee a level of conversion, the possibility that people can say, okay, great shoe. We have seen this shoe on this person's platform. We like this shoe. And then, oh, it's not that expensive, or maybe typically it's expensive, but with this discount now, I might be able to, buy this. And the person does that. The content creator cannot determine that 100 people who saw the campaign, 10% or 10 of them would buy. No, the person is only going to create a high level of awareness. That is this person's job. That can then determine, guarantee a degree of, getting people to then buy the product. So I think it's I don't want to use the word, I know we're on here. I think it's a misnomer in a way for clients to pressure creative people on sales conversion. It's such a difficulty. But again, it does not mean that you can't do that. It's not, content don't ensure that. They don't guarantee that. It's just that you've got to look at like a 360 arm of your product. You can create the best, you can find the best content creators, and they will give the greatest content. What if you don't have a good product to back that content? So you can't really guarantee that you can use good advertising to sell a bad product. So, and to say whether the product is bad or good is not the function of the content creator. It's really the function of the business owner. So, I hope I'm able to tell you the dynamics that play out in that regard. So it's too much. It's unfortunately the problem that creatives have to contend with, because somehow they are seen as miracle makers. Like, you come and do this, and then all of a sudden I'm going to take over the world with the product. No, I'm not. If I audit your product, how am I so sure that the product itself is inherently good to that people will want to buy? So yeah.
Okay. Away from that is fascinated by ideas. How frequently do you get ideas that guide your own creativity?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
You're fascinated by ideas.
Yes.
How frequently do you get ideas that guide your creativity?
Well, ideas are everywhere. Personally, for me, I just try to, I would say I have an attitude of, like, being a sponge. I'm always looking for what other people are doing. I'm always looking for things around me in culture. What are people saying? What is the pulse of the society? And of course, I do read a lot, so try and use that to constantly stimulate my mind. So until the time where I need to then, I might now need to use some of these things that I have in my head to tell brand stories for people in any kind of way. So ideas work like that. There are ideas around us. I personally don't limit myself by what I'm familiar with. So I'm always trying to look for new things. So, like, even if you say Nigeria right now, in terms of politics, if you said, there's a candidate that doesn't seem to look like he has the structures to win the election, but he seems to have a huge followership, my instinct just goes into, oh, okay, whether I know I'm part of the people who believe he will win or he was not going to win, but why is this such a phenomenon? So I go into understanding that, which is a way of just discovering the idea behind that phenomenon. So that's how it works. And that is just even just politics. So, and that kind of you can go into pharmaceuticals. I can take that into, military, some things that are not like everyday thing that I'm, interested in. So yeah, and I think it's not peculiar to me. It's just how creative people really work. It's not peculiar. That's how their mind just goes, looking for things behind and being fascinated by all of this whole thing. So yeah.
Okay. Someone asked me a question that I've talked about clients and what they should expect. What should content creators expect from clients too?
What should content creators expect from clients? Well, I'm on the side that you have to know yourself within before you go out, so to say. So what content creators should expect from clients should actually start from content creators should know themselves very well. So you've got to know your craft. You've got to know your game very well. What you should expect from clients is, when you have been able to demonstrate your level of your craft at a very high level, then you should expect clients to appreciate you at that level. So there's that work that has to be done internally first before we go outside and start expecting stuff from people. So do your own work first, do your due diligence. And it just so happened that when you create high level content, it tends to attract high level clients. I don't know if I can explain that in a scientific sense, but it seems to me that is a formula that works. So if you do good work, it's like seeing the photographers, some of the best photographers in Lagos or in general in Nigeria tend to actually attract the best, client, high paying client as well. So who would have their own demand in different ways. So content creators should expect that clients will look for quality creators, for quality content. And therefore, it then means that content creators should be those people that would attract those kind of clients that want that level of service.
ASU has been on strike for a while, and we're hoping that the powers that be get them back into school. What do you think they should be doing in the meantime? What do you,
What should who?
what should ASU send
Yeah.
students back home? What should they do in the meantime? I think I have that. Somebody just sent that to me here. But that's what has been on strike. What do you think I should be doing with my time as a creative?
Oh, as a creative, what should you be doing? Well, I'm hoping that the person that asked the question probably have, resources around that you can still play with. You can use the time to master. I mean, you never get to become fully full mastery of what you're doing. So you keep learning, you keep trying to understand it. And maybe what I would say is, as creatives, this goes back to one of the questions you asked about, business and how to how to charge for services and stuff. If a young person who is at home, because of the unfortunate ASU situation, maybe you want to also learn you want to learn the business side of your game. So if you're a photographer, if you're a content creator on social media, it might, the temptation is to stay on that lane, just keep creating and hoping that somebody will call you or knock your door or slide into your DM. Try and use the opportunity to train yourself into the business side of things. Learn P&L, learn finance, learn all. And fortunately, we are living in a world where you can always get this thing on the internet. Go on YouTube, see how you can create products around your services, how you can bundle stuff, how you can charge, how you can, connect with potential clients. So all of these things, I think, might be a good way of using your time until whenever the doors of the schools are open again.
Okay. You write. Um, why do you write?
Um, well, people have different ways of expressing themselves. It just so happened that writing is my own. And right, I think it's perhaps because I have the need to share stuff. I do spend a lot of time contemplating things and living in my head. And sometimes I want to put that out in the world. Sometimes it's just putting it out and I'm not sharing it openly. So I mean, I just put it somewhere in my draft, but I just need to, express myself one way or the other. So yeah, that's I suppose the reason I write. And there are fascinating things around that one can talk about. Currently not in the country, so and I see interesting things around me. So, and I put them, write them, jot them, and maybe hope one day I can even share them with the world. So yeah.
So what then would be a story for you when somebody sends you a story? When you
Could you
read
say that again?
when you read a good story,
Yeah.
what are the things that stand out for you?
Well, I want to be sure that the person, I mean, what I'm reading rather, is the person has been able to do justice to the theme or the topic they are addressing, whatever the story is, whatever theme you're trying to write about. If it's fiction, for instance, I just read a beautiful story recently, that Chimamanda Adichie wrote. It's a short story. I suppose she's written it a while back, but I just stumbled on it recently. And it was such a compelling story that I could relate to it. So in terms of the language, the way she, the right kind of language, the kind of emotion that she evoked with words and the dialogue and everything that happened in that story was so interesting. So when I'm reading, I'm mindful, I'm sensitive of, is this person using the right kind of language? Is this person doing justice to this story well? And then is the story able to captivate my attention, captivate me in a way that I can remember. I mean, I'm freely mentioning this story that I just read like recently, and I mean like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and that is just because the story was that captivating. So I'm just looking forward to someone who has the craft and who has something worth sharing, and it's been shared in a very compelling way.
Okay, we have a WhatsApp message, but I know that you're not in the country. So it says, hello, good morning. I'd like to get your guest contact number. The guy that creates commercial video content. So I hope that when you come back, you can allow us give out your details. If you have questions or comments, call us 009-191-3913. 009-222-0913 or WhatsApp us 009-234-5913. I have one final question before we wrap up. Yes, you've traveled to different beautiful places. I haven't looked at all the countries you've been to. What's the difference between? Yeah, I know there's a huge difference, but tell me one difference that you see that's different from home, which is Nigeria.
Um, that sounds like a trick question. Okay, cool. So, I mean, I know those kind of questions tend to make people want to go into condemning Niger or stuff.
I'm not asking you to come and just tell us what's the difference.
Okay, I would say on the one hand, I every time I go out, I tend to see how much we are, how social we are really, that we don't really talk about, like the sense of community that we have in Nigeria that seems to be different from the sense of individuality that other places tend to have. Again, it might be also limited to the kind of countries I've been to, so I wouldn't speak generally. Um, you know how we talk about, I mean, in Lagos, for instance, you always know someone that knows someone that knows someone that can help you with things. And there can be a bit of struggle when you find yourself in cultures where things are very, very individualistic, where you're on your own, no matter how you want to think, you want to Google stuff, whatever. But Niger, I see that sense of community, that communal feel in things. So, which is something that I think I always remember. But it's not something that I think people would know if you are in Niger, because that is just your home, is your comfort zone. You have to be outside to then get a sense of, okay, wait a minute, this thing is not here. Oh, and I had it freely at home. And, so yeah, I know, I'm always aware of that. Is there any other thing now? I also feel that Niger hustle, sorry?
My time is up, but quickly.
Oh yeah, I think that should just be it really in any sense. So yeah, go on.
Okay, then. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Signals will continue next week. As we always say on Signals, create opportunities for people. I'm saying that Coyote, create opportunities for people, and because people will be people, keep creating. Have a wonderful week and God bless. Thank you, Chris, for joining us on the program. Can you be nice?
Yeah, bye.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you too for having me.
Okay, then I would say, good morning, nice job. Okay, I would send you a message shortly. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Have a good day. Thank you.
Okay, then.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. Jesus Christ.